Huge announcement. Probably some people are saying the biggest announcement of all announcements. We don't yet know much other than, well, here's the president saying it. Listen to him.
We'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar. And that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make. Like as big as it gets. And I won't tell you on what. But it's going to, and it's very positive. I'd tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here.
I'm guessing it's got to be the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia coming on board.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I was going to say that makes the most sense to me, too. I don't think it's a breakthrough with Iran. We would have gotten some whispers about that beforehand. And plus, I just don't think Iran's ever going to say, you know what, we're not going to get nukes. So I think that Saudi, it might be an agreement with Saudi that is an extension of the Abraham Accords and also a commitment from Saudi to invest, $1 trillion in the U.S. over the next 20 years or something. I don't know, whatever. $1 trillion is a lot of money. Not so much to Saudi. I feel like they'll pay that for a soccer team these days. But that's something that I think is a likely possibility. I would love to think that it would be, returning all the hostages from Israel. From Hamas to Israel. But I think that is now going into a different phase of the Israelis are doing the final push in that operation, as they well should, and that's going to change some dynamics in the Middle East too.
I also think it has to be someone that you have good relations with in order to be confident that that deal is going to be able to be announced. Does that make sense? Like Iran is constantly shifting. They may say something on Wednesday that's different than what they said on Monday. You can't really rely on them. Hamas, you can't rely on anything related to what they might say publicly. So I think it would have to be someone that the government would have a good relationship with, that you could rely on being reasonable. I don't think you could say, for instance, with Vladimir Putin and Russia, that you feel comfortable enough in them to even forecast something like this. So that's why I think the idea of the Abraham Accords being expanded, which is hugely important long range in the Middle East. By the way, this is something that is significant that I saw also. There's a report that Trump, I don't know if he said this or if this is an official report, that India has basically agreed to zero tariffs on American products inside of their country. That could be utterly transformative in the decades ahead, because India is now the biggest country in the world. And unlike China, which is collapsing in population and I think has already peaked, I think India is going to become the second biggest economy in the world in the next 50 years.
And this then, I think, is a good moment for us to take a look at what is being said now from some very interesting, very astute places about the Trump tariffs conversation. Glenn Youngkin, one of the, I would say, top 5, maybe top 10, top 5 governors in America right now in Virginia, doing a great job. And also a former very senior level executive. I mean, he was the CEO of the Carlyle Group, which is one of the largest private equity firms in the world. This is the governor of Virginia. And like I said, a guy who also understands private industry, saying that, well, I'll let you hear it from him. This is cut 3.
I expect that long term we will have an accelerated growth, and I'm very optimistic. I think in the near term, as the president resets these imbalanced trade relationships and restores fiscal responsibility into Washington, we're going to see dislocation. It's just a reality. But what I do firmly expect is investment from companies around the world to accelerate. I expect job growth to accelerate.
I think you're already beginning to see some of that. The jobs numbers, this is Scott Besson. This is cut 1. In the first 100 days, you need to hear about these jobs. Remember, it's not all government, make-believe jobs, or at least low-show jobs. It's jobs in the actual economy. This is from the Treasury Secretary. Play one.
The core components of the Trump economic agenda are trade, tax cuts, and deregulation. These are not standalone policies. They are interlocking parts of an engine designed to drive economic growth and domestic manufacturing. Tax cuts and cost savings from deregulation raise real incomes for families and businesses. Tariffs create an incentive for reshoring jobs and fair trade. And deregulation complements tariffs by making it easier to invest in energy and manufacturing projects. Already, this agenda is bearing fruit. In the first 100 days of the new administration, 464,000 new jobs were added to the economy.
Clay, people just need to give this some time. And I think what you're seeing here is, first of all, I just 15 years in conservative media. We in the beginning of this, when I got into this, we would always hear we need private industry minds in government. We need people who understand how jobs are created in the economy, not by siphoning money from taxpayers to people who don't actually necessarily do anything or add anything with some of this government bloat. We have this now in a way we not only are the advisors, but Trump himself, right? Somebody who understands the private sector. You look at even Scott Bessent, you compare him to Biden's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. Yellen is an academic economist, okay? That's who was running the Treasury before. Bessent is a guy who had to place multi-billion-dollar bets and be right about the trajectory of economic growth, about what was actually going to happen in the global economy. We have doers and practitioners now, Clay, not theorists and faculty lounge layabouts.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why, the caller from San Diego is fired up. I think people sometimes have unrealistic expectations of what is capable of doing with the ship of state. And I've had this analogy made to me a lot over the years. In the world of sports, the smaller the team, the quicker you can adjust the direction. So if you're a basketball coach, it's like a speedboat. You can change a couple players, you can turn it around. Football team's like an aircraft carrier. The United States is the largest floatable ship on the planet. It's very hard to turn it in any particular direction. Now, sometimes that can be good because if people make really poor choices, then the degree to which they can shift the direction of the country is limited. But you've made the argument for years here, and it's a pessimistic one, but I think there's some truth to it, that the president doesn't largely matter because the apparatus surrounding the president is such that they're going to direct the ship in the way they see best. And you made that argument.
Can I just
for
add
years
that Biden was a test of my theory,
Yes.
right? Biden
Yes.
was a real-world experiment of, is it the machinery and not the man? With Trump, that's obviously not the case, but I'm just saying it can be what we just saw.
Well, and this is why I think Elon Musk has been so frustrated. And look, I love that Elon Musk and Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick and all of these guys that are super successful outside of government are in government trying to do their best. Trump is a great example of that too. But in sports, and I've never seen it applied in politics, but I love the concept, and it's such an interesting one. There's something called win over replacement value. And I think you can apply it to all of your life. It's such an interesting concept. There's basically a war, win above replacement for every player. And I mentioned Aaron Judge is the best player in baseball right now, statistically across the board. His stats, a New York Yankee player, are off the charts. He is worth multiple wins compared to someone that might be replacing him at a position. I think you can apply it to politics. How much better is Trump, not only than any other Republican, but than Kamala? I think massively, right? Because over every day, every decision, the trajectory of the USS aircraft carrier is very different based on the judgments Trump is making versus what Kamala is making versus what Biden did. But within the constraints, I would argue that it is impossible for any president to move faster and break more things than Trump has done in the first 100 days. And therefore, when you call in and say, and I understand people get frustrated, but I think it's important to understand the larger construct. There are people out there who will tell you, oh, the president can do whatever he wants and he can take 48,000 different actions. And the reality is Trump is moving faster and breaking more things than anything I have ever seen from any president in the history of our country. And if you are out there saying he needs to move faster and he needs to break more things, I respect it. I would just point out that historically, no one has moved at the pace that Trump has ever in the history of the United States government. I really think that's true. And they're trying to make government move more like a business. And if you have ever run a business, one of the great things about sitting at the head of the table, if you own the business, is for better or worse, you make a decision. And Buck, one of the management lessons that I think I've learned is it's better to make a wrong decision than not do anything. And some people think that's crazy, but actually it's important because
Can I give you
a wrong decision.
One of the things that at the CIA farm, this is our training facility, that they would always talk about in the context of counter ambush, somebody's trying to take you out, they would just, and I know this military talks about this too, but they would say, get off the X. And they drilled into our brain, when you are under threat, the worst thing you can do is nothing. The worst thing you can do is, I don't want to make the wrong decision, so I make no decision.
Yes.
That you can pay with your life for that one. There's a broader lesson there. There's a broader principle there. You got to just do sometimes, because sitting around with, and especially given the time constraints I think the Trump administration is under with the midterms, as we've discussed, that moving as fast as possible is its own advantage in a system which we've already seen for all of our lives, that can always fall back on inaction as its preferred plan. And the Democrats were hoping that there would be inertia, even with Trump coming in. The inertia of government would be a protection for what they want, which is the status quo.
Yes.
No, he's smashing that by moving so fast in so many places.
And I would argue, again, this is me being a history nerd, probably the person who's moved the government the fastest in the lives of anyone out there that is listening to us right now, certainly the adult lives of anyone that's listening, is Lyndon Johnson. And Lyndon Johnson was able to move the government so rapidly in his one term, after one term plus change when he took over for JFK, because he was a genius of Senate procedure. And so he was able to move Congress at a speed, in the Senate in particular, that it had never moved at before, because he knew the inner workings of procedure in the Senate, having spent time there, better than almost anyone.
A corollary to that was Charlie Wilson's war, where Doc, whatever his name is, I forget now, but the member of Congress who was like on the finance, the spending committee, whatever it was at the time. And Charlie Wilson knew, if I just got this guy in my pocket, I got whoever I need in my pocket to get the things through that I need to get through. So understanding that system is critical. Trump has come in not just with the right team to decide, but with people like Stephen Miller and others who know how the system functions. And this is part of what I think, Clay, has driven Democrats so insane, because first time around Trump, great ideas, first term, not an understanding of the system. So it's a huge difference this time around. Look, here in South Florida, we get huge downpours. We actually just got one a couple hours before the show. Came out of nowhere. The kind that will clog your gutters if you have the smallest amount of leaves, twigs, whatever else that's accumulated. A clean gutter clears the way for a carefree summer. Whether you're tired of unclogging your gutters or don't even know what they look like, it's time for a permanent solution with Leaf Filter. Right now, save up to 30% off at leaffilter.com/Clay and Buck. Gutter clogs aren't just a nuisance. They can cause extensive water damage. Let Leaf Filter's trusted pro help protect your home from flooding, roof damage, rotted siding, foundation issues, and more. They'll clean out, realign, and seal your gutters before installing Leaf Filter's award-winning and patented technology. Protect your home and never clean out gutters again with Leaf Filter. This is America's #1 gutter protection system. Schedule your free inspection and get up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Clay and Buck. That's LEAF filter.com/Clay and Buck. See the representative for warranty details.